Oh, hey there, folks. I'm Tony Fast, and it's July 5th, and this is our weekly JupyterLab development call. Currently we have 9 folks on the agenda, and yeah, there are a few agenda items. So let's get started with Jason.
Hey, good morning, good evening, everyone. So I am curious about adapting extensions to support both JupyterLab 3 and JupyterLab 4. This is something that I've been working on. My team has Jupyter AI and Jupyter Scheduler, both of which are pinned to JupyterLab 3 dependencies. I've tried to upgrade to JupyterLab 4, and the problem is that there are certain aspects, like in the file browser, the iterator result has a different schema in JupyterLab 4, but the code is expecting the JupyterLab 3 schema, and it's really tricky. I've seen people have been trying to upgrade other things, but I'm curious about what the proper way forward is. Like, should we be using the same code to support both, in which case we have to basically support multiple schemas. We have to kind of ignore certain type guardrails that TypeScript puts in, or do we just fork every incompatible extension and have a JupyterLab 3 and a JupyterLab 4 variant of each? What do folks think about the way forward on this? It's already happened to people on 3.6x. Well, I'm not experienced with the compatibility problems with 3.6x. I have seen that the major upgrade broke schemas for things like the iterator, result, that there's just another accessor that I have to call. I mean, or I can upgrade if I upgrade the dependency in the extension package to 4.x, that will fix 4.x compatibility, but it'll break 3.x compatibility.
I guess the changes are so extensive between the versions that, except for the very simple MIME rendering extensions, that would not be feasible to support both versions.
So should we have 2 different packages, one for v3 and one for v4?
Not necessarily packages, but different versions of, like, different branches.
Right. So like for Jupyter Scheduler, we have a 1x and a 2x. Yeah, Nick is saying the same thing in the chat. And then we would have to like maintain both versions with bug fixes or any later patches. Yeah, I can see that. And Git doesn't make that particularly painless, but it is certainly possible. We do that for Notebook and JupyterLab right now. JLPM won't work the same way between them. What does that mean, Nick?
That different versions of Yarn and they are conflicting. That would be very hard to maintain 2 versions. But you can always choose to use NPM or fix a different version of Yarn. It will be just quite painful if you wanted to maintain versions compatible with 3.x and 4.x, just because the tooling changed so much. So Yarn,
Yeah.
different versions of TypeScript. Yeah.
Okay. This is something that I want to discuss with my team, because it's going to be a tough sell, because we've already got 2 extensions we're maintaining. This effectively doubles that to 2 extensions crossed with 2 JupyterLab major versions. But if that seems to be so far the least hacky solution so far.
Anybody else have any comments? Has anybody successfully done an upgrade on their extensions?
Yeah, I will be speaking about one. One is it's my turn, but also I think at least 6 extensions that we ported. So if there is an issue tracking all the ported extensions, I will link that in the chat.
Well, why don't we just use this time to switch over to you, Mike, if you're ready, and we can just continue along the same thread.
Give me another minute if you can.
Yeah, no problem. I'll go with I'll jump in and do my update then. Cool. So I wanted to talk about keyboard issues and parody with Notebook Classic. So one of the things that's kind of seems to be a little bit of a challenge from triaging, like organizational point of view, is collecting the keyboard yeah, the lack of like keyboard parity between the old version of NB Classic and JupyterLab 3 with the new version that's using the JupyterLab 4 base. So I spent a very short period of time. I did not spend much time collecting some issues from JupyterLab. I was wondering if any folks could take like 10 minutes themselves, or if they had any eyes on any issues related to keyboard shortcuts. We kind of collect them in one place, because we did promise some keyboard parity, and right now things are sort of like fractured and broken up across places. So really help us in organizing everything. If yeah, we get a few eyes on this. Yeah, there are some things that are weird and sort of uncomfortable if you're an experienced notebook user. That would be good to sort out before we do a big release. Otherwise, I think folks might feel a little bit awkward in their editing experience. Isabella.
I'm curious, are you asking here for people to collect other issues that already exist for this topic, or are you asking people to do their own review? I thought it was like kind of their own review last time, and I wasn't sure if I had it right.
No, just issues that exist. Just like
Okay.
just so we can, like, a keyboard milestone would be really helpful in having some perspective on that. And we heard in last meeting that folks are working on some of these things. So the more we can help with the entropy, maybe we can get more fixes in.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the next thing is on keyboard stuff. Right now, I think a lot of things have been tagged that are keyboard issues have been tagged accessibility, which is the case sometimes. But I think we need to think about a way to triage keyboard shortcut, navigation, editing sort of issues a little bit differently. They are hard UX to write issues for, and treating them. I don't know if there's a way that we can treat them differently than we are now. Yes, sometimes they are accessibility issues, but sometimes they are just downright user experience issues. So I don't know if any folks have any suggestions about ways that we might be able to like organize the keyboard issues a little better.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much of this is like internationalization as well, because you know, we have people all around the world who are using different kinds of keyboards, and I've often tagged with accessibility, but you're right that that isn't the only aspect of this.
Yeah. So I didn't even think about the international. I don't even know if it's internationalization or localization at that point. It's one or the other. It's some numeronym. But yeah, that's a good point. And maybe there's like a UX keyboard tag or something we could have.
Yeah, I'm okay with creating a label for like keyboard compatibility.
Cool.
And because I mean, Nick points out that not all keyboards are tied to a nation. Even within a nation, you have like there are Mac keyboards, there are Windows keyboards. We even had a bug where a presumably US keyboard user had one of those trendy 60% keyboards that lacks certain unshifted keys. And JupyterLab 4 broke his user experience. So I think this this goes beyond just internationalization and localization to like usability with
Yep.
with the specific eye on keyboards. So should I add? I don't think we have a label for keyboard. No, we don't. I can add that right now.
Cool. Cool. That'll be great. I think that'll like because we can tag stuff keyboard and accessibility, keyboard and internationalization or whatever. But yeah, thank you for talking that through. Alrighty. Anybody have any any comments or questions on keyboard related things?
Can I add, I think you posted something in the chat. No, you didn't. I was going to say, are there links in the notes we need to follow up, but I will look.
Oh, yeah, I will add the link to the issue there. And great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for creating that keyboard label. That'll be useful when we go through triaging. Cool. All right. Well, that's all I have. Maybe it's a good time to move over to Mike. It seems like he has lots to talk about. I'm so excited. It's your turn, buddy.
All right. Excuse sound quality if it's bad. I cut close because I had to skip last meeting. So yeah, the first one is there is a very cool pull request on NBTime, which improves the performance of diffing by up to 150 times when there is a large notebook. And I think Vidar is not on this call, but I'm just very excited about it and like to see it merged. And I also know that many people are waiting on it because GitHub uses it to render notebooks, and there are many large notebooks which cannot be diffed on the user interface of GitHub right now because it's just too slow, and that pull request would fix that. So if the issue is that it changes the behavior of diffing slightly. So if there is a cell which gets deleted and then a new cell is added, if the contents is the same, they will no longer be identified as unchanged. They will be they will appear as if one was deleted and the other added, as was the case, rather than correlates to the same cell. So yeah, if anyone is interested or knows how to push that forward, please check out the pull request. And there is also a second small pull request adding a user interface change to expose the cell ID metadata to users. If anyone has opinions, I'm pretty excited to hear your thoughts about this. Okay. The other point is just to highlight that there is a number of pull requests waiting for review. I listed those which have status needs review label applied, but there are many more which do not. And if you have a pull request which needs a review and would like me or someone else to review that, please add this label, because sometimes it's not clear whether the pull request is still work in progress or just waiting to be reviewed. And I will also try to review as much as I can and hope that some of this pull requests, which some of them are many months old, would be reviewed sooner than later, because otherwise they will accumulate merge conflicts. It's a question. Yeah, is there a way to use NBTime in Notebook version 7? I believe not yet, but there is a ongoing work to port it to support lab version 4. So that would mean it will also support Notebook version 7. I don't know if we have anyone who is working on that right now. I don't see. All right. So my next point is just to highlight that spell checker extension is out, and it was a bit of a challenge to rewrite it with CodeMirror 6, but I'm very satisfied with the result because it allows us to finally spell check in code comments and strings, and it's so much nicer to use right now. There will be a patch release coming today with more user experience improvements. If something broke, please open an issue because it was a substantial rewrite. Okay, on to the next point. There is a discussion about whether the completer provider should be able to advertise their rank. So for context, the completer provider provides completions. So when you press tab, it can add more suggestions. The problem is that currently the ordering is a little bit random, and a user can go to settings and change the ordering of completer providers. But when they install an extension, this extension, the provider from the extension will not be on the first one, which has also implications on rendering of completions, etc. And there is a discussion whether they should be able to advertise their ranks as toolbar commands, as menu items, as add-ons, which can be added on toolbars, can do, or whether it should be hidden from extension authors to avoid potential conflicts. And yeah, I'm curious whether anyone has opinions. Please leave your thoughts on the issue.
Nice.
So second to last point is about adding CSS validator as a very nice extension for plugin for styling. And this one found a number of instances where our values, the CSS, were invalid. And I actually didn't know that styling was not checking whether the values are correct. Styling is only checking the declarations part, the left-hand side, and the rules, but it's not checking whether the values are valid. And I opened a pull request to fix those issues and include the plugin, which checks the validity of the values itself. And I would encourage adapting that in extensions. And if other people find that useful, we can add it to the cookie cutter / copier template for extensions too. Unless you know better alternatives, then please do comment on the issues or pull requests. And finally, just wanted to look back into the extension compatibility table. There is an issue 14590. Please have fill that in if you have rights to edit. Just edit the comments. That will help us to see how the work is going, and whether it will also help users to understand whether they can already migrate to 4.0, because whether the extensions they are depending on are broadly ported or not. So yeah, that's all from me.
Thanks so much for all of those updates. We really appreciate all that work, man. Any comments or questions for Mike? All right. Well, if there are no comments or questions, there's nothing else on the agenda. Is there any last things that folks might like to say before we stop the recording? Yeah, Isabella, please.
Nothing big, but are we still trying to keep scheduling different hosts? Do we have the issue for that, or should I go looking for it?
We do have a issue. Good looks. It seems that we do not have anybody for the 12th. So we are looking for a host for next week. And if you want to volunteer yourself, there is the issue. Oh, yep. Thanks for posting that, Jason. Yeah. So if anybody wants to try their hand at hosting one of these lab meetings, yeah, sign up over there. Thank you. Yeah, Nick.
Howdy, y'all. Ran into a few things working on that Mermaid PR. It's looking better. The MIME renderers updating their data if they do something that the browser is especially good at appears to be broken on 4X. So previously Vega, you run Vega, it does canvas junk. It also would put the fully rendered PNG back into the notebook, and it doesn't do that anymore. So I got a PR up, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't really reasoned about what that's going to do in a multi-user setting if the inputs are not deterministic. If there's some if you're running a layout solver or something inside your browser. So I don't know. There's a PR open for it. It's linked from the Mermaid PR. Also, we've started getting bit by Pydantic going to 2.0. That was only a matter of time. Specifically, copier isn't ready for Pydantic 8 or Pydantic 2. So I think we've handled that in a couple places, but there's no upstream fix yet. And then one weird little thing on the docs. We checked GitHub usernames and someone changed their GitHub username and GitHub doesn't redirect from old usernames, which means that any of us on here that has committed anything ever that goes into the changelog can break our ability to do releases because all that's very tightly bound and link checked and all that. So I don't know. I don't know what the right thing is to do about that. That's about it.
Cool. Any comments or questions for Nick? I shared a link to his Mermaid PR in the Zoom chat, and it's in the agenda. Be cool, folks could check it out. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I'll call out the most recent changes. So Paul on the steering committee, lovely person, raised a very valid concern that affects anybody that does anything outside of basically the core Mermaid or the core Markdown spec. Adding something even across two renderers doesn't mean that something's going to render the same way in the future. So if we were serializing the full render into a notebook at least, then we'd have that. In the future of cells call, we've talked about Markdown Cells doing that, where they would serialize to text HTML and store that as an output. So if you run a notebook, you will get exactly the same DOM out, no matter how many times you open it until you rerun it or re-render it. And this is a way we can work around, supporting multiple Markdown renderers and all those other kinds of good things. And it probably has bearing on magics and stuff like that too. So that's just the backstory on that.
Very cool. Alrighty. Any comments or questions or last minute updates that y'all feel compelled to share? Alrighty. Well, I think that means I'm gonna stop the recording. If there's for anybody saying anything last minute. So I guess as Darian always says, brace yourself.